Okay, well, it's time to get started. Want to welcome everyone. I know it says it right there. My name is Adam Pearl. I'm president and CEO of ArtPride New Jersey. And I have to say, on behalf of the board and the staff, we are so excited that you could join us this afternoon for our annual meeting. Um, I want to let everyone know at the top a few housekeeping notes. We are recording this, so the information today will be available later on our website, certainly within the next day or so. And for those of you that haven't had a chance to attend our webinars over the last few months, just as a reminder, there's the question and answer feature at the bottom, and we encourage you to use that, especially with our keynote speaker that's coming up. There's also the chat feature where we might stick a link or information there, and there might even be some polls that pop up along the way, which you can participate with. We're gonna get started here. Behind the scenes, we have Vincent Hall on the ArtPride team who is advancing our slides. So you might hear a few of us refer to Vince. So Vince, let's move ahead here. So pure 2020 fashion, a meme to start it off. How we started passing historic legislation, and I think Merrill might have it right on how it's going so far. But in all seriousness, in today's webinar, we're going to take a look back at the last year or so. We're going to stream a live performance from the Nai-Ni Chen Dance Company, hosted by our friends at Roxy Ballet Studio. And then we're going to take a look at what the future holds for ArtPride and where we go from here. But first, we are really thrilled to bring today's keynote speaker, Hank Willis Thomas, who's joining us virtually, obviously, and we really appreciate that. And I'd like to bring on superhero arts advocate Anne-Marie Miller, who I think many of you know from her work and certainly from our recent webinars. Anne-Marie is the one who introduced our team to Hank's many projects, and we all thought that it would only be fitting that she introduced this year's keynote speaker. So I'll throw it over to Anne-Marie.
Thanks, Adam. I didn't forget to unmute myself, which is, an achievement all by itself. First of all, I want to say first off, thank you, Hank, for joining us this morning. He is so busy right now. To give us his time is really incredible, and we're so grateful. I had the pleasure of meeting Hank at the 2019 Americans for the Arts Conference in Minneapolis. I was inspired by his keynote address and his amazing interdisciplinary work. Like any starstruck audience member, I stood in line to chat with him briefly after his remarks. Hank was personally encouraging as I shared images of my own artwork on my phone, and later he recommended other artists I should research for inspiration. Any artist will tell you how much encouragement means from someone whose work that you truly admire. Hank's work has been exhibited internationally and throughout the United States, and he has had solo exhibitions, was included in group exhibitions, and is in the collection of major national museums, including MoMA, the Guggenheim, Whitney High Museum, National Museum of Art. He has received numerous fellowships from the Gordon Parks Foundation, the Soros Equality Fellowship, and NIFA, among others. He's a member of the Public Art Commission of the City of New York and has permanent public artwork in New York, San Francisco, Florida, and most recently in West Philly. Hank's extensive body of work represents how the arts are central to the emotionally compelling messages that activate social justice work. Through Four Freedoms and Wide Awakes, he formed a coalition of artists who have made a real difference by engaging citizens in the voting process and envisioning a future where artists are at the center of public discourse. I know you will be energized by Hank's vision, his leadership, and his collaborative spirit, as well as his work. If you have questions for Hank, as Adam said, please enter them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and Adam will help field questions at the end of Hank's presentation. So I'm not going to hear virtual applause, but please welcome Hank Willis Thomas. And Hank, I have my cape on.
Thank you so much, Anne Marie. That's a really wonderful introduction. I am so grateful to be here. Um, Thank you, Adam, and to New Jersey Pride for, I mean, for ArtPride New Jersey to for inviting me. I'm only looking at myself right now, so it's a little bit weird. And so I will, I think, share my own screen. So I stopped looking at myself because it's really trippy to see myself. Whew. It's so great to be here. It's really exciting to be part of um, the art community and seeing the ways in which we have been um, reconsidering our role in civic society, our role in relationship to one another, and our role in our country over the past several months. Uh, and I think we've been given an incredible opportunity as creatives to finally or once again make a claim and make the point that art is essential to any healthy um, society. Most of what we know about any ancient society is through the art and artifacts that were left behind. Uh, we also know that creativity is central to innovation. And if we know anything about our current state of governance and our current state of civilization, is that we're desperately in need of creative civic engagement. And so over the past several years, I have kind of come to a new reality of understanding the responsibility of art and civic life as uh, possibly the only way that we can um, be on a pathway towards um, productive or affirmative change in our society. And uh, part of my process has first started in my studio practice, where I started looking at performance and protest as a form of performance, of public performance as in civic action. I started to look at the history of the civil rights movement and the women's suffrage movement and um, the gay rights movement and the ways in which um, creative civic action helped change the public discourse about who was important, what was important, and what pathway our society should be on. I also learned a lot about the ways in which infiltration and suspicion and self-hate and um, and too much ego and pride were used as wedges in these movements to divide and conquer. I've also learned about the the challenges of kind of the Messiah leadership myth that we've been conditioned to believe in. That there's one person uh, or who is on this divine path to lead us to freedom. I've come to realize that each of us and all of us make history together. And uh, in 2016, my friend Eric Gottesman and I created a super PAC called For Freedoms, FOR Freedoms. And we wanted to put critical discourse into civic discourse through fine art thinking. And we decided that we could best do that through um, challenging artists and arts institutions um, to be civic leaders and to actually become more engaged in civic discourse through exhibitions, through town halls, through billboards that really centered political engagement in an anti-partisan way. That the left-wing, right-wing binary that we doesn't actually apply in any absolute way to almost any of us, and that we all have more things in common than that separate us, and that we can focus on the differences where we can focus on the common ground and build towards allowing opportunity to bridge our binaries. And over the past 4 years, we've done exhibitions, town halls, and billboards. Like I think over 400 billboards in all 50 states, plus DC and Puerto Rico, and now the American Virgin Islands. And then we've done about 200 town halls across the country and 150 exhibitions, and worked with at least 2,000 artists. And millions of people have seen the work, which I'm like, oh, I should be showing you all of that right now. But it doesn't actually matter about any specific work of art, because as you can imagine, the volume is ridiculous. But it's the vision of it, the vision of artistic civic leadership is something that we are attempting to plant the seeds, that we're planting the seeds with, and the necessity for everyone in our society to think that art is not a charity, that if we do not have creativity, we are literally going to end. Because art is everywhere. It's in the clothes that we wear, it's in the food that we eat, it's in the computers that were designed for us and the interface. It is in the cars we drive. It's art. It's on the chairs that we sit on. None of it would exist if it were not for creative thought. And the fact that we don't write our laws with innovation, with creativity, and that we were so stuck in the finite thinking of the past is does not open new windows for opportunity. And I came across about 10 years ago. Oh goodness, I'm gonna hop into. Oh wait, time. Okay, I am going to. I am going to share my screen, and I came across. I just got inspired just to share with you all something that I sometimes don't have a chance to share, which is the For Freedom, what really inspired the work that we're doing here, which was this Wide Awakes. I came across this image from, it said Wide Awake 1860. This was in 2009. I had no idea what it really meant, but I did think that this idea of this piercing eye looking into me in 1860 was something I could not forget. And I came across this ad about 5 years later that said, "Aha, gentlemen, you needn't catch me napping, for I'm a regular wide awake." And it's the storming of the Capitol. And so we see on the right Stephen Douglas and a lot of the Democrats, which was the party of slavery and other prominent American values at the time, trying to steal their way into the White House. And on the left, we see a young Abraham Lincoln in his cape, carrying a torch and his rail, and he's saying that he alert to what's the ways in which politics has often kind of misled the people into injustice. And I found that in 1860 there was a political movement that virtually no one knew about, which led to the most radical change in our history that any of us could believe. I found this document in the Connecticut Historical Society that said in February 1860, Cassius Marcellus Clay spoke in Hartford, Connecticut. A few ardent young Republicans accompanied him as a bodyguard, and to save their garments from the dripping of the torches, a few of them wore improvised capes of black glazed cambria. The uniforms attracted so much attention that a campaign club formed in Hartford soon after adopted it. The club called itself the Wide Awakes. And I even found this first Wide Awakes cape from that date. And as I did more and more research, I found out that there was a movement afoot that really created the ultimate terms for both the election of Abraham Lincoln and the ending of slavery in its time, and that the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as a pro-women's suffrage, pro-abolition party, and then by 1860 was a pro-immigration party. And through that intersectional movement, they were able to create an incredible alliance of hundreds of thousands of people marching through the country nonviolently, playing music, shouting loud, carrying torches, and wearing capes for freedom. And that was something that I really have been deeply impacted by. And so over this year, through For Freedoms, we decided that we were going to relaunch the Wide Awakes, and we started to do events, parades under the banner of Civic Joy from Juneteenth up until now, because we realized that in order to have the future that we want, we need to start to act in the way that we want. And part of that action is to make civic engagement something that is fun, something that is open, that's enjoyable, that is not about the hate and the frustration, the harm, but instead about the opportunity that each of us have in making the future better for ourselves and others. And so we created this infinite playbook for our 2020 campaign. And we started thinking about this great awakening that all of us had in 2020, where we became more aware of our breath, of the preciousness of every life and every minute, and the need for us to band together collectively with a heightened level of awareness and being wide awake, meaning to constantly be checking ourselves that we're not falling into the sleep and stupor of our fear, our anxiety, our frustration, which can keep us from working together towards a greater good. And we realized that if we could try to plant the seed that it is a game that we have to play with ourselves and others in building and keeping society fresh and vibrant, that we could open new doors. And so we decided that we were going to apply this idea of an infinite game. And the object of an infinite game is to continue to play. A finite game, like, football, checkers, basketball, baseball, are to have winners and losers at a specific time, in a lot of ways in which each election season is a finite game. But the infinite game is for the bigger picture. And we realized we wanted to actually invite, we were going to play this game that encourages ourselves and others to see our role in society with a broader lens, that we need to come up with rules. And so we created the infinite playbook and the rules of the infinite game. So rule number 1, which is no one plays alone. You know everything you need to know. The rules always change, and love overrules. Rule number 2, there are no gatekeepers. Bring people into play, be where you are, and carry your own trash. Rule number 3, learn from feeling, let love quiet fear, nourish joy, go there. And rule number 4, you're just in time, leap before you look. You know everything you need to know, together we are awake. And seriously, don't take yourself too seriously, play on, player. And through that, we've been inviting people into these disorientations where we are unlearning some of the habits and some of the challenges that we face about in seeing ourselves as disempowered, and realizing that each of us are given innately superpowers through our ancestral intelligence, our ancestral wisdom, through the thousands of people that literally live within our veins that have brought us to this moment. And looking at the historical wide awakes, which were also in New Jersey, this idea of also reawakening this intersectional movement in us now, but also not disbanding this time the way that they did in 1861 after they had their candidate. because the price of that was, it took another 50 years, was a civil war. It took another 50 years for women, primarily white women in this country, to get the right to vote, and even another 100 years for many black women to actually get the right to vote. And slavery took on a different name in mass incarceration. And so the work of emancipation and liberation continues. Um, the last thing I want to talk about is our idea of the new four freedoms, which are listening, healing, justice, and awakening. In 1943, FDR created, he gave a famous speech called his Four Freedom speech, and he said that everyone was entitled to four basic freedoms: freedom of worship, freedom from fear, freedom from want, and freedom of speech. And in a time now where there has been so much pain that's been caused through external and internal uh, processes, that we need to have a citizen's guide to healing. And so Four Freedoms has been developing processes in this experimental lab, um, publicly through our work, to frame these new things that every citizen and every person on this planet is entitled to. Um, and I will say that we have been also registering to people to vote. If you text awake to 33339, you will see our voter engagement tool. And we have the short-term goal of increasing the joy of voting, and long-term goal of building a political and cultural identity around listening, healing, justice. And our primary values is that we must insist on the future, provoke bigger questions, present nuanced stories, nourish joy, listen until we hear, bridge binaries, be visionary, not reactionary, and play the infinite game. So that is a lot. And I just started to crack the surface. But I wanted to give this framework because I believe the work that you all do, where you touch millions of people and you change their lives, whether you know it or not, because art spaces and arts institutions are some of the few places in our society where people go to have their minds opened, to be challenged, and to engage with things that they're unfamiliar with. And that is fertile ground for building a greater future.
Hank, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. You're getting a ton of applause all across the state of New Jersey right now.
Thank you.
And lots of people are cheering in the at home. I appreciate it. We do have a bunch of questions that came in, and I just appreciate it so much because I just love the notion that none of society would exist without creativity, and that we don't get to this place of evolution that from here forward that we need without that same creativity. So we have some questions coming in. Paula Monson has asked, how do you feel the Black Lives Matter movement has impacted the arts?
Very few movements have had a greater overt and radical influence on art since at least the 60s, right? And it's not a coincidence that Patrisse Cullors, one of the three founders, is an artist, that it is a conceptual work of art. Our president is also a conceptual artist. But I think specifically the beauty of the Black Lives Matter movement is that it has become a global collaboration, and people continue to find new and innovative ways to make this argument, and to invite new people into play.
All right. So Emily Ambash, who's on our ArtPride staff, has asked a question. And Emily's asking, do you see this movement as unique to 2020? Will it need to morph once we've moved past this particular moment in history?
I think everything must evolve. I think rule number one, and if you can go to forfreedoms.org, you'll find the Infinite Playbook. But there are now Wide Awake chapters all across the country, and we don't know most of those people who are just kind of using and embracing this idea of greater self-awareness and political awareness to impact how we approach voting. And so October 3rd, we did our first, we created our own holiday, which was Wide Awakes Day, where we did these incredible engagements with people all across the country in the spirit of civic joy. And I don't think we should go away from that. And every October of that where there's election, whether it be local or national, should be a month of celebration. It should be like our Oktoberfest for getting people aware and about the opportunity to improve our society.
So I'm just going to just jump in here. There's at least a couple more questions here. If folks have questions, I see that a few folks have raised their hands, but actually if you could put questions into our question and answer box, it's a lot easier for getting them through that to Hank. So we appreciate that. So Anne-Marie, who introduced you earlier, had a question about, she says, what one thing that has happened since Juneteenth through Wide Awakes that has stayed with you emotionally?
Well, I mean, I think the generosity of strangers is always what inspires me in my work, where you're like, wow, I don't even know you. And that people awaken their own powers, and they bring food, they bring people, they bring clothes to the table. Just seeing the different events that are happening across the country under the banner of the Wide Awakes, people going to the polls wearing capes because we're the ones we've been waiting for. But I would say, other than October 3rd, when we marched from Washington Square Park to, specifically the part where we marched from Washington Square Park to Federal Hall, the first site of the American government, where For Freedoms has a collaboration. And we had Moko Jumbi stilt walkers, and we went to the African slave burial ground, and the Resistance Revival Chorus serenaded us. And like, that was just powerful. But also the next day, Duke Riley, another artist, created the Wide Awakes Navy. And they're going out on the seas in about 30 or 40 cities on October 23rd. But on October 4th, we went out into New York Harbor, and people with like these boats, the big and small, sailing up from Annapolis, like with voting in mind and spirit and Black Lives Matter flags. And I grew up in New York, and I never even knew that you could stand in the middle of New York Harbor. There's someone who's walking on the water, like within, I don't know, a half mile of Statue of Liberty. It was just crazy. That really blew my mind.
I love it. I love it. All right. So Karen Pinzolo from South Jersey Cultural Alliance. Karen works with a lot of arts organizations in the southern portion of the state, is asking, how do we engage with your movement to help heal our own communities? Well,
I would say, thank you, Karen. There is no movement that I am part of that you are not also part of, because I don't believe I have any greater leadership capacity than anyone else. That I have different leadership talents. And if I ever claim it as my own, I've probably lost sight, because what I hope to do in my small portion of it is to do something that future generations will welcome. And it can only happen if more people open doors to it. And so both Wide Awakes and For Freedoms are open source. There are artists who make their own For Freedoms billboards. They put their logo on it and they put them up, because to be, the idea of being FOR Freedoms is that we sometimes have to be open to freedoms that we aren't currently up for, because we're all in the process of growing. And the Wide Awakes especially is a 19th century movement about abolition and communion, where there were imperfect people, by our standards, making radical change. And I hope 160 years from now that we will be in that tradition. So I mean, feel free to write, and I don't even know the answer to this email, awaken@4freedoms.org. You can write me, Hank, awaken@wideawakes.com, Hank@4freedoms.org. I'm bad at email. But, or you can, if you go to wideawakes.com or Cape on Eyes Open, you'll see a participation toolkit. And I just hope that people take away this idea of like bridging binaries and not looking at our neighbors as our enemies, because we have a vested interest in what Martin Luther King stated best in his book, Chaos, his last book, which was Where Do We Go From Here? And he said that mankind has a choice between collective co-annihilation or collective coexistence. And those words ring true, and we need to find a way to coexist.
So Hank, we have time getting the messages, the angry messages from my staff to keep about time. So we have time for one more question. So I want to apologize to anybody who submitted a question that we didn't get a chance to do. But in all fairness, Erica Nagel, who's with New Jersey Theater Alliance, and Erica works with theaters all around the state. Erica says, I love the concept of civic joy. Can you talk more about how the arts can and should be a part of increasing civic joy at a time when people are feeling so much fear and sometimes cynicism?
Yeah, and I also want to point out that these ideas aren't all mine. Claudia Pena and Manushka McGlure, two of collaborators on Four Freedoms, coined these terms. And they were really, this is a time where so many of us are triggered, so many of us are living in fear and doubt. And another woman named Matali Makande said in a talk about this moment, if I'm going to die of COVID, I'm going to die free. And it gave this different charge to this moment of like, do I want to die in sorrow or do I want to live in joy? And as a society, when we're faced with these challenges, if we're ever going to avoid a civil war, it's going to require something new, and that's civic joy, because nobody wants to stop the party. So I hope everyone, there is an idea that many of us are pushing to bring our joy to the polls. There are people who are going to be playing music. There are people already wearing capes to the polls. Halloween is going to be a fun day to vote. There's also, of course, All Saints Day, which is a day where we honor our ancestors and the hundreds of thousands of Americans that we lost, and pay homage to them through our engagement. So please join us.
Hank, thank you so much for your time and your insight and your wisdom. And as Tanisha, who you met earlier, and a lot of folks are going to hear from a little bit later, texted me, and I was thinking the same thing. I just love the sentiment that there's no movement that we're all not already a part of. So just thank you so much for the work you're doing. And we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. And next time I will bring downstairs, I'll bring my cape, but Anne-Marie, thank you for bringing yours. Yeah. And everyone just try it on, put on a cape. It's fun. Walk the streets. Yeah. With the mask. All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, with the mask. Absolutely. Wear a mask for sure. So thanks again to Hank. Really appreciate that. That was inspiring. So with that, we'll keep moving forward, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our esteemed leader, the volunteer leader and chair of our Board of Trustees, Sharon Harrington. Hi, Sharon. And I'm going to turn it over to Sharon, and Sharon is going to give everybody an update on the advocacy work that ArtPride has been doing both before and during the COVID-19 crisis. All yours, Sharon.
Thanks, Adam. It sure has been quite a year. And Hank, can I say it has been an absolute pleasure to learn about your work and to be inspired, motivated, and challenged. So thank you. And I love the idea of civic joy. But if there's one thing that this crisis has shown us, it's that New Jersey's arts and culture sector is able to adapt nimbly and quickly, even with the incredible challenges so many of us are facing right now. So today we're here to celebrate our collaborations, re-energize our passion to advance the arts, and to imagine what the future could look like. What makes ArtPride so successful is all of you, our members, our trustees, partners, funders, friends, staff, and all of you who are on this call. We could not be successful without your support, as you know, and your voices as advocates. So I'm here to talk about advocacy. We started off 2020 feeling positive. Remember that? After successfully shepherding the passage of S-247 and A-3101. So a special thank you to our sponsors, former Assemblywoman Egan Jones, and champion Senator Troy Singleton, and to the many co-sponsors and supporters of that legislation. This bill increases the mandatory minimum level of appropriations from the state budget to the State Council, New Jersey State Council on the Arts, the Cultural Trust, the New Jersey Historical Commission, and the Division of Travel and Tourism for the first time in 10 years. ArtPride was integral in garnering unanimous bipartisan support in the legislature prior to the governor's signing of that bill. Many of you participated in this collective grassroots effort, and I'm now happy to report that our army of arts advocates has grown to nearly 13,000 people engaged in making this work happen. Thank you. Your response to ArtPride's action alerts prompted hundreds of letters, emails, meetings, and phone calls, and helped to shepherd multiple pieces of pro-arts policy that continue to inform and update our elected officials and policy leaders. Your voices as advocates helped us to also successfully advocate for increased funding for the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting Services, and the Institute of Museum and Library Services in the federal budget. This translates into over $7.75 million, bringing the NEA's budget to $170 million. By advocating and protecting supports for the arts at local, state, and federal levels, ArtPride has encouraged elected officials to develop policies that spark investment in the arts. In addition to our partners in history and tourism, we also collaborate with partners in education, healthcare, economic and community development. We have laid the groundwork for the formation of a new Mayor's Committee for Arts and Culture through the New Jersey League of Municipalities. And all of this underscores the cross-cutting role of the arts in bringing communities together. Now, this major victory seems so long ago as we've pivoted to the challenges of this year, but we owe it to ourselves to say congratulations. The passage of this bill was the culmination of years and years of advocacy efforts by many of you on this call, especially the leadership and relentless determination of our Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, Anne Marie Miller, who is owed a very special thank you. Adam will talk more about the implications and opportunities of A3101 later on. Since the onset of the pandemic, the entire organization has been working relentlessly on behalf of arts organizations and artists across the state, especially to ensure that arts organizations would have access to pandemic relief funds. These efforts have been focused on providing resources to the industry, advocating for relief and recovery funds, and executing new campaigns. Adam earlier mentioned our Friday morning COVID webinars, and we've seen many of you on those calls. We want to extend a very special thank you to our speakers who included Evie Colbert, Shanita Johnson, Nick Paleologos, Jeremy Grunin, Allison Tratner, as well as partners from the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, the New Jersey Business Action Center, the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, the Americans for the Arts, and more. There was even one morning where a very welcome meditation session took place. So thank you for that. Most notably, ArtPride has adapted Discover Jersey Arts in response to the pandemic and transformed the Art Matters brand into Keep Jersey Arts Alive. In July, the video Art and Health in the Time of COVID was released as part of the rollout of Keep Jersey Arts Alive. So thank you for all that work. And with that, I will hand it back over to Adam.
Thank you, Sharon. So yes, as Sharon mentioned, in the late spring, ArtPride worked with the New Jersey State Council on the Arts staff and Jersey Arts marketers, leadership, and marketing experts from across the state to rebrand what was formerly Art Matters into Keep Jersey Arts Alive, with a focus on increasing awareness of the public value of the arts. And the results was an updated website featuring the new brand alongside data on jobs, economic impact, and student participation in the arts, broken down by county as well as statewide. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, by all means, get there today, keepjerseyartsalive.org. So thank you to everybody who participated in that enormous effort to organize. So we really appreciate that. Along with our partners of this co-sponsored project, the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, we decided to invest funds into a paid advertising campaign that included organic and paid social media ads, digital advertising, public relations, email marketing, and online toolkit, which many of you used. I think Jim just threw up a poll there about how many of you shared Keep Jersey Arts Alive, either personally. The results were great. As you can see there on the screen, in terms of impressions and how many people we got in and to take a look at it, as well as media stories, 40+ media stories, and they're still going. People are still talking to Anne-Marie and I about Keep Jersey Arts Alive and where the arts industry is now and what it faces ahead. Discover Jersey Arts absolutely took a huge pivot and rolled with the proverbial punches. And Vince, you can jump to the next slide. Perfect, thank you. So actually, Discover Jersey Arts, if you didn't know, was in its 20th year and was off to a really strong start, but it did adapt to changes along the way. Before the pandemic hit, we managed to sneak in 4 Jersey Arts member events. We also, with part of that pivot, along the way there, sort of streamlined the jerseyarts.com experience. And I think many of you have seen the at-home and the live campaigns. Right now on discoverjerseyarts.com, there are 3 ways to feature events that organizations are doing. Jersey Arts at Home continues to showcase organizations hosting virtual events. Jersey Arts Live features organizations that have reopened to the public. Space and capacity in these highlight campaigns are limited, but I will tell you our team does our best to curate an event listing that represents the true width and breadth of all of the opportunities and all of the diversity of culture we have across the state. But please let us know about what's going on in your corner of New Jersey. And for in-depth behind-the-scenes feature stories, videos, podcasts, you can continue to rely on Culture Vultures. The production team there has worked through the pandemic with podcasts and now with video segments. They've done a great job highlighting arts around the state. So please continue to stay tuned into everything Discover Jersey Arts. For those that are working behind the scenes at arts organizations, Discover Jersey Arts, the co-sponsor project, obviously between New Jersey State Council on the Arts and ArtPride, continues to provide those essential subsidized marketing and development services to members, primarily through these 2 programs you see here. This year, we are offering 50% off both of these services to help maintain their affordability during the pandemic and into recovery. For those of you that don't know, Audience Insight Management is the community database of nearly 2 million unique households of qualified cultural consumers. And this is a tool that marketers are able to use to take a closer look at your audiences, at your donors, and you can stay tuned for more information about that coming up from our staff. The other one you see on the screen here, Cooperative Media Database, provides access to Cision. Many of you know Cision as the industry's most trusted database of media contacts and social media influencers. And for what it's worth, going to the Cooperative Media Database through the Discover Jersey Arts program actually is about 90% off what it would be if you went directly to Cision. So stay tuned for more and more information about that. The Jersey Arts Marketers Network of more than 300 arts organizations across the state continues to connect virtually, and they are, their goal is collaboration and professional development. So if you're working in marketing in New Jersey, please make sure you're connecting with that. This past year, we hosted 6 regional Jersey Arts Marketers, or we call it JAM, professional development events. We had a DIY video boot camp that was open to organizations statewide. And most recently, a couple of months ago, we had a webinar focused on marketing strategies as we transition to recovery. And unfortunately, in the past year, we did have to cancel. Thrive June 2020 was a casualty, unfortunately, of the pandemic, and it's very disappointing for us and for everyone around the state. We all look to Thrive as an opportunity to connect and to rejuvenate and to look forward. So we are upset that we had to move on, but we are planning for 2021, hopefully June 2021, to have the Thrive Arts Conference, potentially in person, potentially virtually. Please stay tuned. We promise to give you information. And for the many folks around the state that have been involved in planning, know that is going to be picking up very soon as well, too. So as many of you know, you are our members. This is our member meeting. So membership supports particularly our advocacy work on behalf of arts and culture around the state. But given what we've had to face and the challenges we continue to face, ArtPride actually started suspending membership dues back in March. And you really can't talk about these programs without understanding that ArtPride is only as good as its members. And so we understand what you're going through, and we're going to continue to suspend the payment of organizational membership dues through the year as long as we can. That said, ArtPride continues to be in a stable fiscal position, so we want to make sure we share that with you. FY20 that we wrapped up last summer, or in the summer, I should say, was the second of 2 consecutive years where ArtPride had a net positive gain after a run of about a decade of losses. So the organization is in a strong fiscal position, and we're very happy and very grateful for our supporters, who we're going to name and thank a little bit later on. ArtPride, for what it's worth, has also been working to evolve as an organization as we address systemic issues within our organization and how that affects our role as the state's art advocacy and promotional organization. So to share more about the journey that ArtPride is on, I'd like to welcome co-chairs of the working group that is helping to guide this process. So please join me in welcoming Tanisha Nash Laird, President and CEO of Newark Symphony Hall, and Gabriel Van Alst, President and CEO of New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. And thank you to both of them for being with us this morning. I'll throw it over to you and Gabriel, or this afternoon, I'm sorry, to Gabriel and Tanisha.
Thank you so much, Adam, and welcome everyone. It's great to see so many friends and colleagues here on Zoom. And despite my background, I'm coming to you from Jersey City. I want to acknowledge the traditional landowners, the Lenape people. So at the end of 2019, ArtPride began to work to become an anti-racist organization. We created a working group of board members, staff, and other stakeholders from the arts community in partnership with LB Hannas of Tangible Development to help make us a more equitable organization and create strategic, measurable EDI goals for ArtPride to quickly advance as leaders in the EDI space within the New Jersey arts community. And today, Tanisha and I are going to share some of the steps that have taken place so far, as well as some of our next steps. But before I go on, I do want to acknowledge the leadership of our prior co-chair, Bob Wagner, for setting us on this important path. It is also Bob's birthday today, so happy birthday, Bob. And thank you for all your hard work getting us to this place. So through our partnership with Tangible Development, we've begun our journey, and the work so far has focused on establishing an understanding of the organization's current diversity and inclusion status, determining future organizational focus areas, collaborating with the EDI working group to guide each phase of the project, and providing periodic updates with project lead and strategic plan, with our project lead and strategic plan consultant. And most importantly, identifying gaps to successfully implement diversity and inclusion efforts through internal assessments. So as we enter what we're calling phase 2, our journey will continue. And the next steps that we're going to work on with Tangible Development are we're going to collaborate with the EDI, with the ArtPride strategic plan consultants to integrate EDI working goals into the organization's new strategic plan. And Tangible Development will guide ArtPride through a design thinking approach to embed EDI into every organizational layer of ArtPride. This highly collaborative process involves visionary and strategy sessions with leadership and supporting your teams on goal implementation. EDI mission, vision, value sessions will continue to articulate ArtPride's EDI mission and vision, clarify our values, and align EDI mission work and our vision with ArtPride's current mission statement. And we're hoping to have a strategic EDI report delivered to ArtPride by April 2021. And with a little more updates, I'm going to throw over to Tanisha.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. I also want to make a couple of acknowledgements, including Bob Wagner's birthday. Happy birthday, Bob. And I also want to thank you for being my co-chair. And I also want to thank you, Gabriel, for stepping in when Bob stepped down. So just continuing the report on the EDI work, the other opportunity areas for our organizational process that we've identified is in alignment with ArtPride's newly established, alignment with ArtPride's newly established EDI mission and vision, develop formal EDI recruitment policies and practices at the board and staff level, and apply EDI mission and vision to external programs and services, including but not limited to communications collateral, applications for funding, advocacy efforts, relationships, and work with members, stakeholders, and funders. So we would also like to mention that ArtPride has created a landing page on their website at artpridenewjersey.org about our EDI work and resources on anti-racism education. So again, if you navigate, I believe it's under the About section. We'll be periodically updating this space with information on our continued work of making ArtPride more equitable. So I also want to talk about another initiative that I'm really excited to be involved in, and that is the New Jersey Arts and Culture Administrators of Color. The New Jersey Arts and Culture Administrators of Color is a network of professional arts administrators of color dedicated to advancing efforts related to equity, diversity, and inclusion within New Jersey's arts community. This initiative is in partnership with New Jersey Theater Alliance, the state's service organization for professional producing theater companies, ArtPride New Jersey, the state's largest arts service and advocacy organization, and the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. Formed in 2019, we held our first 2 gatherings in Camden and Newark with a turnout of about 25 to 80 people, respectively. The meetings served as brainstorming sessions for future of the work, in addition to ways to helping arts administrators advance their careers and organizations. A steering committee was established of arts and cultural administrators to create programming to help meet the needs of our members. And I'm pretty proud to be on that steering committee. This year, NJACAC will be planning 2 professional development workshops, the first around brand development and the other around fundraising. To date, the network has over 100 members, and we are in the process of building partnerships with other collectives to cultivate relationships across the state. And so again, I'm really pleased to be able to be part of this section of the meeting. And now I'm going to throw it back to you, Adam.
Thank you, Tanisha. Thank you, Gabriel. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the work that you do. And I will also share on that resources page is in full transparency the results of the assessment that Tangible Development did for ArtPride, sort of a picture of where we are as an organization and the growth that is clearly left for us to work ahead. So that's there for anyone that's interested, that wants to get involved, has any kind of input. We are open ears. So. With that, we're going to keep moving along here. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Nai-Ni Chen, led by Executive Director Andy Chang. For those of you that know, Nai-Ni Chen has been a force behind one of the nation's leading Asian American dance companies for over 30 years. Like many, their touring company came to full stop in March. But Andy and Nai-Ni Chen quickly learned how to edit video and led the dancers to safe rehearsal in order to create content online. They quickly got together with Mark Roxy, a founder and director of Roxy Ballet, who has adapted his studio for teaching and working in the online environment. Mark knew that his community needed dance and that he was going to be the provider of a dance experience during the pandemic, no matter what. So Mark became a video producer, and today he's going to showcase the Switcher Studio technology he installed in his studio. So with that, I will say thank you to Andy and Nai-Ni Chen for their performance today, and thank you to Mark and Roxy Ballet for generally hosting our artists. Andy and Mark, I will pass it over to you.
Hello. Hello, everybody. We're waiting to get started. Go. Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the beautiful Roxy Ballet Studio in Lambertville. As you know, that the company went, as Adam has you, we came to a full stop, and Nai-Ni became a video editor. And not until we met Mark, who's now a video producer. We're going to show you a live performance today. And I think that's a real good progress that we're making. And it also showcases our commitment and our understanding that today in this society that there is great division. And we know that the arts will be needed to help us to awaken ourselves and awaken our audiences to the future. It's going to be bright, and hopefully you will see that in this dance called Awaken. Now let us start.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed the performance. And now back to you.
Mark, Andy, thank you. Please send our best to the artists and let them know that the entire arts community around the state is cheering for them. You can share with them. The chat box is blowing up right now. We appreciate it so much. Thank you for making this happen. It's so important to us, so important to the ArtPride team to have some live art be part of this. So we're just so excited. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to keep moving along here because we do have a little bit more to share. We are moving ahead at ArtPride, and we are off to a strong start for FY21. I think most on the call know that together we successfully advocated for increased funding to $19.858 million for the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. So as it said here, as you can see on the screen, stay tuned for their annual meeting next week. Please join us if you need information for that. Council, contact anybody on the council staff. Excuse me. Of course, that effort, the appropriation, is a direct result of our collective grassroots effort to contact members of the Assembly, the Senate, as well as the governor and his staff. And though the appropriation includes increases for the Division of Travel and Tourism and the Historical Commission and calls for some funding for the Cultural Trust, it does take $4.1 million from the Cultural Trust to the General Fund, and ArtPride will continue its advocacy work to ensure that the Cultural Trust is refunded in future years. In the short term, coming up, for those of you that are very tuned into our advocacy efforts, we're already underway with potential access to current and future pandemic relief funding for the industry. Early analysis of a recent survey, which many of you recently completed, is reporting that more than $100 million will be lost in contributed income and earned revenue for arts organizations between the lockdown in March and December of this year. So please be on the lookout for new action alerts with talking points and advocacy action items in the coming weeks as we push for additional support from the remaining and potential future pandemic relief funds. As I mentioned earlier, something we were really happy to announce today, during the pandemic, we've been able to suspend the payment of organizational membership dues, and we hope to continue to do that for as long as possible throughout the year. But we'd also like to take this opportunity to announce a new membership program for the year. ArtPride is currently offering free one-year memberships to any organization that has never been a member of ArtPride before. So it's really that simple. If your organization is nonprofit, if it's for-profit, if it's big, it's small, it's local, it's performing, it's dance, it's visual art or otherwise, and it's based in New Jersey, North, Central, or South, and you've never been an ArtPride member before, just contact Megan. Her email's there on the screen. Megan is our membership and development manager, and we'll be excited to welcome you to our family. We're excited to have more and more arts organizations be part of the ArtPride family. We're also want to make sure that everybody on this call is aware of the New Jersey Arts and Cultural Recovery Fund. ArtPride played a role in organizing that with Clear, the funders who have funded it. So we're happy to just have played that small role, and we encourage all eligible organizations to apply. So we really appreciate that. And before I go on to the next slide, Andy has just informed me that they are going to post their performance from today on YouTube. So if you want to rewatch it or share it with friends, you will be able to. So moving forward, we're actually thinking back a little bit. On Tuesday, March 10th, the ArtPride Strategic Planning Committee met in a fairly packed conference room at the Grounds for Sculpture to start the process of a 5-year strategic plan. Things have changed in the last 7 months. And with an understanding to be more flexible, ArtPride has adjusted its planning process. And the result is the strategic framework that you see on your screen now that will help guide the organization through the coming year. I know it's a little small. This is going to be put up on our website if you're interested. But some of the highlights include really focusing on our ability to advocate for the support that the field needs right now, the things you need most right now in the moment, to make sure that we continue to be that resource to provide the information for arts and cultural groups, to make good decisions, to keep doing the work, to make sure you're engaged with the audiences around the arts and culture, the content that you're presenting and producing, and continue, as we've heard earlier, to making ArtPride a more equitable, stable, and sustainable organization. And ultimately, I really believe a lot of our focus in the coming years will be to support that long-term recovery of arts and culture in New Jersey. But above all, whatever lies ahead, we are committed to remaining flexible and adapting to the changing fields of what you, our members, need. So, as if you hadn't been told enough, we couldn't go this whole webinar without reminding you to vote, or maybe just sharing with you this awesome campaign from our partners at Americans for the Arts about Arts Vote, and asking you to share this and their tools with folks, especially in the coming weeks. And thank you. This is the thank you portion of the event. We appreciate everyone for hanging in there with us. I want to thank everybody that makes this work possible, all of you on this call, all of our amazing staff and supporters and members, volunteers, and advocates. I want to thank in particular the staff. I know we've mentioned a few by name. Amory Miller, of course, our Director of Advocacy and Public Policy. Jim Atkinson, our Director of Programs and Services, who's running production here behind the screen. Megan Lobu, who's our Membership and Development Manager, and Vincent Hall, our Membership Services Associate, who are tasked with making the annual meeting happen and just knock it out of the park every time. And of course, Corin Reif and Emily Ambash. Emily is our Web and Content and Promotions Manager, and Corey is our Marketing and Communications Manager. They are the ones that make sure you get the information, they make sure we get the word out, and they also usually make things look visually appealing. So thank you to all of them. They have worked so hard over this past year in circumstances that really none of us obviously could have ever imagined. Sharon, I'll throw it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Adam. And of course, we have to remember to thank Adam for his leadership and the work that he's done in moving us along and keeping us on track during this very unpredictable year. So thank you for everything, Adam. All of you on this call, all our amazing staff and supporters, thank you. I want to take the opportunity to thank 4 incredible trustees who rotated off the board in June due to term limits. They each served the organization and the entire arts community with dedication and passion. First, thank you to Tanisha Nash Laird, Newark Symphony Hall, who's been very active in ArtPride for a number of years and is, as you heard earlier, a leader on our EDI work, as was Bob Wagner from the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. They co-chaired the EDI committee from its inception. Scott Carlbron of Burlington Arts and Antiques has been a tremendous partner for a number of years. And finally, Marjorie Nathanson of the Hunterdon Art Museum, who was a leader in our organization as well. Each of you is greatly appreciated and very much missed. I also want to thank our 5 new trustees who just joined the board on October 2nd. So please join me in congratulating Linda Harrison of the Newark Museum of Art, Tracy O'Reggio Clark from the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center, Anita Thomas, Carolyn Dorfman Dance, Corey Solomon, Apple Farm Arts and Music Center, and Mike Stotts, Paper Mill Playhouse. We also had some changes in ArtPride's leadership. Allison Lorena, President and CEO of the Mayo Performing Arts Center, has been appointed to Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees, and Paul McCrae, the Assistant Director of New Jersey Ballet, has been appointed to Secretary of the Board. In addition, Jeremy Johnson, Executive Director of Newark Arts, is now Chair of our Governance Committee. I especially want to thank Gary Garrido Schneider of Grounds for Sculpture. Gary served as a trustee for many years and recently as both the chair of the Strategic Planning Committee and as vice chair of the board. He has always been a strong supporter of ArtPride and will continue to be a key partner in the future. Thank you, Gary, for your time and dedication. to our organization. I echo Adam's thanks to all of our extraordinary ArtPride team, and I especially want to thank Isha Vyas of the Middlesex County Division of Culture and Heritage Commission, who chaired the annual meeting committee. But finally, we give our deepest thanks to our funders and donors. This work doesn't happen without your financial support. So thank you so much. Adam?
Thank you, Sharon. We appreciate it. Appreciate your work. I have to say, there could not have been a more perfect chair for our legislative challenges in this past year. For those that know Sharon, that know she is deeply respected across the state. And it was a true key partnership led by Sharon and Anne-Marie and Joe Simonetta of Public Strategies Impact, who's our government relations consultant, and the entire government strategy committee that have led to the successes in the past year. But we don't do this without financial support, clearly. So I want to thank and call out our major funders, the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation, the J. and Linda Grundon Foundation, the F.M. Kirby Foundation, the Hyden Watson Foundation, and both the Roma Bank and Investors Bank Community Foundations. They, along with every funder, everyone who gave from $1 to our largest gifts, whether you're on the board or whether you're a friend of a friend, and it is just terrific. We really appreciate the support through everything that we've done. So with that, really appreciate our time. I think I'm going to be make the staff happy that we got done right in time. So thank you again. Thank you to everybody who joined us, to Hank Willis Thomas, to Nai-Ni Chen and Roxy Ballet, to the members of our leadership team, to our staff and board. We so appreciate everybody that was here. And again, feel free to share if you enjoyed Hank's speech or Andy's presentation. You'll be able to find that later on our website. So thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. Stay well. Thank you for coming.